And I'm calling the Texas Early Learning Council meeting to order. Thank you for hitting record, Megan. I'm Reagan Miller. I'm the Director of the Child Care and Early Learning Division at the Texas Workforce Commission and also the head of this Texas Early Learning Council. Really happy that all of you are joining us today. You'll see some new faces and we're going to get to new member introductions in just a moment. But if you see some faces you don't recognize, there's a reason. Hopefully you guys all got my email yesterday. So as you guys know, we're back to producing this as a Zoom webinar, and council members, presenters, and agency staff are participating as panelists, while members of the public are able to participate in a listen-only mode. As a reminder to all of our members, presenters, and staff, please keep your electronic devices on mute when you're not speaking, and Megan will mute us if needed. Megan is our Interagency Deputy Director for Early Childhood Support. She's going to serve as today's meeting facilitator. And try to remember to announce your name before you speak each time. As a reminder, the opportunity to request public comment, written public comment, expired yesterday at 5 p.m., but members of the public are still able to provide oral public comment today by emailing their request to Megan Schneider, and you will see information in the chat with Megan's address. So any members of the public that have joined us, if you'd like to provide any oral public comment, please email Megan. Okay, so folks, this is a governor-appointed council, as you all know, and we were notified this week of some updates to our membership. So I want to welcome 3 new members. Beatrice Mata. Good morning. Beatrice,
Good morning.
why don't you tell us where you're from?
Ector County Independent School District here in West Texas. So Odessa, Texas, Friday Night Lights. And no, I'm honored and excited to learn from and alongside each one of y'all. This is going to be exciting. So thank you.
Great, we're happy to have you here. Beatrice is representing local education agencies. We also have Jennifer Stockamer. Did I pronounce that right, Jennifer?
Hi, yes, Jennifer Stockamer. And I'm in McKinney, Texas. I'm the founder, director, and owner of a small private preschool. And I'm also a family studies doctoral student at Texas Women's University.
Fantastic. And Jennifer is representing child care providers. And we have our ECI representative now. And say hello.
Hello, everybody. Well, I have gotten the opportunity since I've been in the ECI role to work with everyone in this council. And so I'm just really pleased to finally be an official member.
Fantastic. We're glad, yes, finally official. So we received input from the governor's office this week, and as they were updating us on these 3 new council members, we did have 1 council member who was replaced. So Jennifer is replacing Jerletha, who has been a member of this council for quite some time. I think most of you know Jerletha McDonald. She's the founder and president of the Arlington DFW Child Care Providers Association. And previously, she was the owner and director of Kitty Corner Family Child Care. Since this position was a representative for child care, Jennifer is replacing Jerletha in this capacity since Jerletha is no longer a child care provider. But in her current capacity, I know that we are all going to continue interacting with her. She's been a really valuable advocate for child care providers, home-based providers in particular. And we know that she's going to remain active in early childhood, both at the local, state, and national levels. So I really want to thank Jerletha for all of her years of service on the council, and just know that I'm sure we will continue interacting with you in other capacities. Okay, so the next item that we'll go to is approval of the September 2023 minutes. You should have received that in an email as well as an attachment to the calendar invitation. So I want to see if there are any edits or changes to the September 2023 minutes from any council members. Okay, hearing none, I need a motion to approve the minutes.
Maricela Nava, approve.
All right, Maricela has moved to approve the minutes. Do we have a second? All right, Kathy Abba has moved to second. If there's not any discussion, then we are going to ask Megan to conduct a roll call vote for today's meeting, as well as the approval of the minutes. Megan, over to you.
Great, thanks so much, Reagan. So when I call your name, please reply for, against, or abstain. And for our couple new council members, you're absolutely welcome to still approve the meeting minutes, even though you weren't here, or you can abstain if you're more comfortable. So let's see. Kathy Abba. Kathy, I know you're here because you made the motion.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted.
That's okay.
4.
Thank you. Sarah Abrahams.
Approve.
Weldon Beard.
4.
Terry Breeden. April Crawford.
4.
Rochelle Daniel. Alfirma Giles. Melissa Hoisington. Becky Hess-Keeler.
4.
Tim Coffrin. Tori Lee. Beatrice Mata.
4.
Reagan Miller. Reagan, are you for approving the meeting minutes?
Oh, yes, I am. 4.
That's okay. Maricela Nava.
4.
Stephanie Rubin.
4.
Amber Sconlin.
4.
Kirsten Schwab.
4.
Jennifer Stockmer.
4.
June Yateman.
4.
Awesome. All right. We have met a quorum, and let me do a quick tally here. And the meeting minutes have carried. So thank you so much. The motion to approve the September 2020 through 2023 meeting minutes carried. And I will turn it back to you, Reagan.
Great. All right. We have a quorum, so we will be able to continue and conduct the business and take votes as needed. Our next agenda item is public comment. As I mentioned, we didn't have any written public comment. Megan, have we received any requests for oral public comment today?
We haven't, but Cindy, if you want to go ahead and flip us to the next page, or the next slide, just for anyone who is tuned in the future, if you'd like to give public comment, earlylearningtexas.org has a section where all the meeting information is posted, including the agendas at least a week prior to the meeting. So you're always welcome to email me prior to or in the early minutes of the meeting if you'd like to share any public comments on any of the agenda items. So I'll pass it back to you, Reagan.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to move to our next agenda item, which is our preschool development grant Birth to 5, PDG grant, as we've been calling it. It's been great seeing everybody in person over the past few months as we all met to talk in more detail about the PDG grant in our strategic planning sessions. So you'll see on the slide, there is sort of a dotted line with some blue dots highlighting those dates that we met to talk about the strategic plan here in person in Austin. So we've shared this timeline with you before, and now we're entering into the phase for the drafting and editing of the full plan. We are going to have opportunities for council members to see drafts of the plan and review the plan a couple of times. The first draft will be reviewed from October 30th to November 3rd. And then the second draft will be November 27th to December 1st. So want to make sure that you guys kind of pencil in those time frames since we will be sharing draft plans with you guys. So our last planning session here in Austin, the 5th and the 6th, I was not here on the 6th. I understand there was a lot of enthusiasm on the last day. I was there the first day, and it was just a really great meeting, and having an opportunity to really look at a lot of the needs assessment data that came in and really think about and react to that data and how it helps inform the strategic plan. I really wanted to open it up to council members to see if you have any thoughts that you want to share about the meetings that we had, any reflections that you have about the content, and about sort of our next steps as we develop the plan. So council members, anybody have thoughts that they want to share?
Reagan, I'll go really quick. I just wanted to commend the UT group that put this together in terms of the feedback that they were able to get from families. I thought that piece was kind of missing in our last version, and it was really great. That provided a lot of good there was a lot of good feedback, and it really I think made the planning process feel more specific for families.
Yeah.
And this is Sarah Abrahams. I would say I also thought the process was helpful in that way, and that the way that they were able to lay out the feedback that they had received was really helpful. To me, I think it made it very clear that a sort of cut and paste from our last strategic planning work was probably not necessarily that alone wasn't going to do it. I think it was really clear from the feedback and data received that COVID in particular and various other things that have happened since that last plan was drafted have so intensely impacted the work that we do, that there just has to be some attention paid to all those changes, what they mean, what the impact is, and then how we work together to incorporate that impact in whatever it is that is happening moving forward. So to me, that was like my real takeaway, is that a lot has changed and that we really have to figure out how to pivot alongside all that change.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie.
Thanks, Sarah, for bringing that up, because what I really appreciated, both from the family perspectives and also, what they were sharing in terms of barriers and challenges, was this very cross-system piece, which is, yes, they're having trouble accessing childcare, but they're also struggling with a lack of health insurance, or other kind of just broader family challenges that I think we've probably had a more robust discussion in these meetings about the many different programs and supports that families need to thrive, and not honing in on just sort of one system. So that's one thing, of course, that's the benefit of the way the council is laid out. And I think the conversations as facilitated led to some of those richer cross-system discussions too. So I appreciate that as well.
Other thoughts? I agree with what all of you just said. I thought it was so interesting. The family input was just amazing. I think that was, when you read it, it was clearly something that we didn't hear in our last strategic planning session. So that I just thought that was a really great addition that really helped ground our work based on the people that we're serving. I thought it was so interesting hearing from the workforce across systems about the kids that they're dealing with and the challenges that those children seem to be facing post-COVID. And it just seemed to be sort of a systemic observation across multiple early childhood programs. Becky.
Just from the workforce, because I'm more on the workforce side, I thought that day that was the September meeting, I thought that was very well done too. And a lot of people had a lot of good voices about things that need to happen. And so I think that just getting us together, and I appreciated having this group here, since I've been involved since the beginning of it, have these perspectives from all these different agencies and people, because sometimes we get in our own little silos and we know our own thing, but we don't know these other people's perspectives and other agencies and stuff like that. And so even from the workforce part, I thought it was very well done, and the way that the whole group, both days, were structured, and the interaction, the way they had things up on the wall and how interactive it was. And I even appreciate those little fidgets they things like that, that everybody's voice was heard, and hopefully something good will come out of the whole thing.
Yeah. Stephanie.
There was one other thing I wanted to mention, just for people who are listening and awaiting a draft at some point, which is we had a lot of conversations and struggles with the, are we going to recommend things in the plan that are things that are doable, and by whom? Is this a plan that's supposed to be this, big vision statement of all the things everybody would like to accomplish that address all the big problems? Is this are we headed in a way that we will make recommendations that the agencies and legislators can accomplish, and communities can accomplish in a reasonable amount of time? Like, there were just lots of discussions about how to approach this, and I know it'll be a great opportunity and challenge to try to wade through those as we come up with a final plan. But I just wanted people to know that we marinated a lot on those questions about, and I don't know that we came to a clean solution to that. So I think we'll continue to have discussions. Things may be in the plan that will be very clear, and other things may not be in a plan. That doesn't mean they weren't priorities of the Early Learning Council. It's just about kind of an operational plan going forward. So, as we move forward, people have other kind of feedback as this gets drafted. That's, I think, a real point of importance as to, is this going to be something that we can make headway on? And that's the goal of the council, as opposed to just kind of highlighting, big problems and sort of dreamy responses to it. Like, we're really trying to improve the systems. So thank you, Reagan, for just letting me share that, because I know that's something that's been important to you as the chair.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because we did struggle with this concept of, we all know there are just enormous needs. And as we think about the plan content, how do we acknowledge enormous needs, but create action plans for things that we can actually impact? So we did have a lot of discussion about that. I think it's very good for folks to know that was, a big talking point for all of us. And I know we did have some members of the public that joined us to listen to those. So certainly glad that some other folks were able to attend and listen to the deliberations as well. Other thoughts or comments before I talk a little bit more about information on the PDG grant that's available? Megan, why don't we go ahead and go to the next slide? As I talk about this, you guys can certainly continue to weigh in, but I want to remind people, we have posted a lot of information on the Texas Workforce Commission's PDG webpage, as well as on the Texas Early Learning Council's webpage. You'll see webinar recordings that we've had, an overview of the PDG grant, early childhood workforce, early childhood coalitions, families and data systems. And then we've posted the initial needs assessment findings, again, tied to those areas, workforce, coalitions, families, and data system. So all of that information is available on the website for anybody who's interested in learning a little bit more about the needs assessment that's been conducted, the findings from those needs assessments. All of that is there. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, or comments about the PDG needs assessment strategic planning work? If not, I want to remind members, October 30th to November 3rd, November 27th to December 1st. Think about those two timeframes for reviewing that draft plan. Okay. We are going to jump to our next agenda item, and this is the Early Childhood Data Roadmap Work Group. You guys will remember we put that work group together, gosh, it's probably been a year and a half now. Sarah Abrahams led that work group, and she's going to share some new information with us about resources that we have available. So Sarah, over to you.
Hey, thank you. So, oh, hold on. I had the, anyway. So I think as many of you remember, we convened a work group last year, really trying to dig into this idea of integrated data. We talked a lot about what is an early childhood integrated data system. What does that mean? Why might we need one? We did a lot of work to try to build the business case for it, which is really like, essentially what that means is trying to explain what it is that we thought something like that would answer. What are the questions that we have? What's the information that we need that we can't answer now, given the way that we as separate agencies and separate sectors and separate organizations collect information? So we created a formal roadmap to chart out sort of the high level landscape of early childhood data. So where it sits in different agencies, how it comes to be, lessons that we've learned from other states who have undertaken this kind of work. And then two sort of really concrete business case examples for where Texas could start. To complement this roadmap, Third Sector Intelligence, which was a consulting firm that we worked with, that I think worked directly with TWC. Is that right, Reagan? They documented sort of a more detailed landscape and inventory of the early childhood data as it currently exists in the state. So I just want to highlight that landscape, sort of that overview and report that they created, is now posted on our Texas Early Learning Council website. So we just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that in addition to the roadmap as a complement had been completed, and now both things are on that website. I think they have both been really useful documents in helping us think about integrated data. And I think there are already projects that have begun to lean back into both the roadmap and the landscape to better understand where we're starting from. So I think Megan and Reagan, is that what you were hoping that I would cover, or is there any other details that I missed?
No, I think that's it. I think we wanted to make sure that folks know that both of those written resources are available. The ECIDS roadmap is sort of laying out a future plan.
That's
for how we
right.
might consider getting to the development of an ECIDS, and it really looking at policy questions that an ECIDS could help the state answer. It was informed by this early childhood data landscape and inventory. So the roadmap is sort of the path forward for us to consider, and the inventory was a resource that was available. We were fortunate that Third Sector Intelligence donated this early childhood data landscape to the state. Our commissioners in one of our weekly commission meetings accepted that donation, since they did provide this at no cost to the state, which was, obviously something that was very helpful since we didn't have to fund the development of the data landscape. So we certainly thank them for their work, because this is something that we will be able to use as we sort of look forward with the PDG grant. ECIDS was one of those elements included in the PDG grant for us to look at over the 3-year period. So in year 2 and year 3, we'll be coming back to try to determine next steps based on this roadmap. So let me stop there and see if any of the council members have questions. Okay. All All right. Then we're gonna move to our next item. I want everybody to know we don't have a heavy agenda today. So if you have questions or comments, please let us know. We only have 2 more agenda items. First is update from council members, and the second will just be announcement of early childhood events. So let's go now to updates from our council members. And the first update is from the Texas Workforce Commission. I've asked Allison Wilson to give an update on a few things that TWC wanted to share. So I believe Allison is a panelist.
Morning. So Megan, if you can go to the next slide. Okay. So we wanted to share a few of the guidance letters that have recently been released. The first one is our childcare reimbursement rates for the new fiscal year. So 2024, which started October 1st. So this WD letter 2023 does include those rates and some information about the methodology that that we based those rates on. So as we did last year, the rates are benchmarked to the 75th percentile of the market rate survey. So we did that again. We also we always do like a hold harmless, so that if there are any rates in the most recent market rate survey, which we do every year, if there are any rates that have fallen lower than what they were last year, we don't lower them. So they either, you know, they get set to the 75th, or they might be, or they don't get dropped. Yeah. So the other thing that we did that was new this year is that we leveraged our childcare cost of quality price modeling study. So we used data from that to look at what the baseline cost of care was based on market rates for providers that are meeting minimum health and safety standards for like just a base level of quality. We did that by excluding providers that have a lot of deficiencies, concluding that they're not meeting a basic level of quality, and therefore we would not include their rates in the data set. So we compared those rates to the 75th percentile of the local market rate, and anywhere that the cost of care rate was higher than what the 75th percentile was, we bumped up those rates. So it was a targeted set of increases we were able to do to really address those areas where it appears the market rate is not really reflecting what it costs to provide care at that quality level. And those did primarily benefit infant and toddler rates, not surprisingly. So we have a couple of other guidance letters just issued, the 2123 and 1923. These are in relation to the childcare workforce strategic plan that TWC published in January of this year. These were a couple of the recommendations that came from that work group that was put together as a result of House Bill 619 and went into that strategic plan. So workforce boards are now required to have a member on their board that represents the childcare workforce. So previous to the plan, and also this was also in legislation, not just something that came out of the work group. But previously there wasn't that specificity around a member that had to have childcare background. It was more just around early childhood knowledge. So that's kind of tightened up now, and they are implementing that. Additionally, the second one is for boards to develop a local childcare committee. This did not have legislation associated with it, but was one of the recommendations from the work group. So we've issued guidance on this, and boards have considerable latitude in how they set up these committees and what the sort of governance structure is for them. But the idea here is that, they've got a group of experts in this space who are able to, help inform decisions that the workforce board makes around childcare. So any questions about any of those before I move on to one more update? Okay, can you go to the next screen? Okay. So the other thing that we wanted to share with you was that in June, we released the Texas Child Care Provider Cost of Quality Calculator. So this is a tool that we've been hearing for many years now, that there was a big interest in having. It allows providers and as well as others, it could be, folks that are trying to determine if they want to open a childcare business. It's also useful for policymakers who are trying to understand the costs associated with childcare. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay, share. There we go. Okay, so this tool, let me show you how to get to it. This is our new TWC website, recently redesigned. If you come up here to programs, childcare and early learning is one of the choices here. And if you follow that, come down here and under information and resources for childcare providers, one of the options is this calculator. So we developed this tool with the vendor and a lot of input from actual providers. Some of the folks that are on this council actually provided input in the development of this. We also had some providers that were on the House Bill 619 work group that provided input. It allows you to come in here and model what a childcare program might look like from a fiscal perspective. So again, it takes in basic information about, the scenario you want to create, the hours of operation, where you're operating, how many classrooms you're going to have, what the age groups are that are being served in those classrooms. And then I'm going to switch over here to the user guide because I think it's a little bit easier to see some of this stuff you don't want to sit here and watch me data enter a bunch of stuff. But it gives you a lot of flexibility in how you create your scenarios. So, you may or may not have Texas Rising Star certification turned on. You get to tell it like what percentage of children you're serving are receiving subsidy, whether or not you participate in the child and adult care food program. A lot of different pieces of information. It covers personnel costs, non-personnel costs. It uses some default data from labor market information, as well as some other publicly available data to default in things like salaries. The user can override those. So if the average classroom teacher in Texas in a childcare program makes about $12 an hour. If you want to override that and say you're going to pay your teachers $15 an hour, you can do that and it will model that for you. And then at the end, that's the non-personnel cost. So this also lets you say how many of those extras are you providing your employees and what kinds of enhancements or enhanced services does your program offer that may have costs. And then you also get to say, enter information about revenue. So in the end, it'll give you a report, which will show like a break-even analysis. So you can see whether or not the revenue you've said you would collect in the form of tuition, as well as considering whether or not you're getting subsidies or the CACFP program assistance. It'll show you whether or not you're going to break even. And it also lets you look at it by classroom. So you can see where you're going to need to balance out your program and charge a little bit more for the 4-year-old classroom than what it actually costs to run that classroom so that you can subsidize the infant and toddler classrooms. So it really, it gives like I said, both providers and policymakers, a lot of really actionable information, and a tool to, play with potential changes they might want to make in their program. They can really see the effect of various different levers. So with our website redesign, this user guide somehow got missed. So we are working on getting the user guide posted. I think, it's helpful if you just want to kind of have an overview of the tool. But we do have, the actual tool that you can go play with as well. That is out there. You can get to that on the TWC site. Okay. Any questions? Yes, Stephanie.
I haven't played with this yet, but this looks really great. And we have heard some good feedback from providers who've, heard about it and maybe had a chance to play with it a little bit. So that's great. I was curious about, you're talking about all the information that's inputted to including revenue and, kind of expected costs and things like that. Is it, I'm just thinking something really interesting would be if a provider, knowing turnover and retention issues, wanted to play a little bit with, if we raise rates for childcare educators, and salaries. And so if we were able to do that to a certain level, like what would they need in terms of reimbursement rates or revenue in order to meet that? Like that actually would be a really interesting calculation, because I think, we know the workforce challenges are really significant. And obviously the financing is very complicated, and how to improve salaries and benefits while also keeping doors open. And is that possible, Allison? You'd sort of play with that number and say, okay, well then my revenue would need to be, that much higher in order to meet that goal of raising, salaries and benefits for employees.
Yes. So here's the final results page. It shows a summary of the costs. It shows a revenue summary. And it even gives you an annual cost breakdown per child. So, and then, you can come back and walk through it with a different scenario to try to tweak those numbers and make it come out.
Great. It seems like it's a great opportunity for the community, with your help too, to learn some lessons from it, like how different people are using it, and the different kind of costs at different communities. Like, there may be different ones in rural areas, or ones that are serving outside, normal working hours, or who happen to serve more kids with disabilities or whatever it is. So it seems like there's a lot of opportunity for learning about how this market functions and how to make it function, for everyone's benefit. Thank you.
And Allison mentioned, we really had great input from childcare providers as this tool was being developed. I mean, a lot of the features that are in there and the assumptions that go into it were based upon feedback from childcare providers. So we couldn't have done it without them. Okay, thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Our next updates, we've got Megan from ECI. She's going to provide us with some updates from ECI.
Thank you, Megan S., for showing my slide. We are really excited to announce the dates for the one-day regional conferences that we'll be holding in 4 cities that you can see up on your screen here in December and January. These are funded with federal stimulus funding we received through the Texas Workforce Commission. The goal is to create connections between ECI and childcare providers, with another goal of building inclusive classrooms to better serve all children. The target audience is going to include our ECI providers, childcare providers, TWC board staff, and other parties who are interested in developing strong relationships between ECI and childcare. Each conference is going to cover a variety of topics related to building inclusive classrooms, and it will include the new ECI developed inclusive classroom training, as well as updates in childcare regulation, ways that childcare and early learning programs can partner with ECI, how to create effective inclusion plans, sensory learning, screening tools, and relationship building. For more information about these conferences, you can contact the ECI Special Projects Coordinator, Beatrice Watson, whose email is on the slide here. And I have a couple other updates for which I do not have slides. Thank you. So first, we recently received word from the Federal Office of Special Education Programs that we are being awarded a continuation of the personnel retention grant. So we'll be receiving another $250,000 this year and next year for our ongoing work in supporting our local programs and implementing evidence-based practices for personnel retention. And then finally, ECI recently announced changes in our ECI providers and service areas in far Northeast Texas. So Opportunities, Inc. has decided to terminate their ECI contract with us effective end of day today. And the new ECI providers, the neighboring ECI providers to that current service area are expanding their service areas to take on those counties. And Megan S. has graciously agreed to put this in the chat for you all, so don't feel like you have to write down these counties I'm about to read out to you. So Community Health Corps has added Bowie, Cass, and Red River counties to its service area, and Lakes Regional Community Center has added Camp, Franklin, Morris, and Titus counties. Both Lakes Regional and Community Health Corps already provide HHSC-funded community center services in these counties for individuals with behavioral health conditions and for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The ECI program search webpage has also already been updated to reflect this information. We're really excited to have these two experienced ECI service providers volunteer to expand their service areas to ensure ongoing service provision in these counties. Did I have a question, Catherine?
Thanks. Two questions. Is there a cost for these conferences?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I know that for our ECI providers that's free. I need to double check if there's a cost for other people, but we can get back to you.
Yes, please, because sometimes we recommend these to students. And so, and my second question was back to the grant. I think that you mentioned you have an extension on, correct? Which is
great.
This is
gosh, I keep messing up. Personnel retention grant.
Congratulations.
They call it preschool development.
No, I know. Quick question about that. Personnel retention. So the personnel that you hope to retain within the centers, is that who
within our local ECI service providers, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That was it.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Megan Y. And thank you, Megan S. for showing all of the slides. Okay, we are going to ask Lee Roberts to share some updates from childcare regulation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lee Roberts with CCR, Policy Manager, and we've recently had some revised and new rules go into effect. Talk about two different sets of rules. The first set, we had updates in mid-August, August 22nd, updates to Chapter 745, which covers general CCR regulations that apply to pretty much all of our operation types. Thank you for adding that in the chat. We updated and added rules in subchapters B, I, and K. So the rules are related to requirements for relative-only listed family homes. We have separate minimum standards, Chapter 742, that are specific for listed family homes. But most of those minimum standards do not apply to relative-only listed family homes. So we updated the rules within subchapter B to reflect to specify that applies just to relative only listed family homes and to update for current practices and requirements. Some other areas that we updated rules include voluntary actions. That includes things like a voluntary closure. An operation decides they're no longer going to care or provide services. Same thing for voluntary suspensions. We updated those rules to reflect current practices as well as current statutory requirements. And to clarify some of that for the different operation types. We also had updates to inspections and investigations. Again, here really to clarify things and make it a little more clear regarding when we inspect, how frequently, when we can investigate, and the type of operations that we can do regular ongoing inspections and investigations at. We also had updates to our rules regarding confidentiality, as well as technical assistance. You can see the rules on our public website on the minimum standards webpage under general licensing. And we have a webinar, a recorded webinar, and the accompanying PowerPoint that you can view and share with your colleagues and others if they're interested in learning more about the specifics of the updates. It just gives a little bit more in-depth overview. We also have a highlighted copy of the changes so you can see what changed compared to the previous rules. And then also a copy of the repealed rules are there so you can see how we updated those things. And then most recently, actually, again, if we can go to the next slide, we also had additional updates also in in chapter 745, subchapter J, regarding waivers and variances, and these just went into effect on October 16th. These updates were to meet federal statute requirements on the residential child care side, meaning children that in the care of the state, foster homes, group settings. So it does not apply to more traditional child care operations. And we also did a cleanup of the rules to clarify and support current practices. Again, we have those rules are posted on our website on the minimum standards webpage under general licensing. Again, we have an update specific to what changed within the rules. You will notice a lot of the rules were what we call repealed and replaced. So it may look like they're brand new, and in some cases they are, but in many cases it's just the previous rule was pretty outdated. So rather than trying to just update that specific rule, we updated with a whole brand new rule, and that way we were able to add in some more clarifying rules in addition to hopefully make the process a little more clear. Again, you can see a highlighted copy of the changes and a copy of the repealed rules as well. And again, for childcare providers and operations, really no significant changes, just really to support current practices. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, any questions? Okay. I want to see if any other council members have updates that they would like to share with the group. Stephanie.
You know me, I always have things to share. So some of them are resources. First of all, on the ECI update about the Texarkana region, just wanted to express gratitude to HHSC for, helping that transition. There's ECI providers have to give a certain amount of notice that they're leaving the program, and it's very challenging for HHSC to make sure that there are other programs to pick up that service area, so there's seamless support for kids. So, and I know that's a heavy lift, so I just want to, we know that these providers expanding into new areas we'll have some challenges, but I'm glad to see that there isn't a gap in time. So families at least will know where to go, and pediatricians and childcare will know where to refer. So really, I hope that the community will also help get the word out, so families know, there are some new providers, and referrers know where to go. That's really important. I think HHSC has done a great job to do as much as they can, on a seamless transition. So thank you, Megan and team. There's a couple of things that that are really helpful, I think, for the council. One is, hopefully you've seen the updated prenatal to 3 policy impact center report that's come from Vanderbilt. So I can put that link in a second. And that's got some just great national and tracking of how states are doing on various measures. And there's, of course, a Texas page. And so I encourage folks to look at that. I'll link that in a minute. I can't really type and talk at the same time. And the other is David Fagan and Peter Clark on our team produced kind of a summary of where we are in childcare, but also the opportunity that voters have in November with the ability to vote on Prop 2, which is from legislation passed last session that would allow communities to implement a tax cut for eligible childcare centers. That, it has to pass. It's a constitutional amendment. It has to pass, be passed by Texas voters, and then communities would then make a decision as to whether to implement that tax cut. So it's a 2-part process. So let me put that in the chat too in a second. The last thing I would say is we're going to be sharing a blog soon, or a summary soon, about the maternal health, the postpartum coverage extension that the legislature passed this last session. HHSC is moving forward with its state plan amendment to the feds. And we are expecting, based on information from HHSC, that benefit, the extension, should be begin March 1st. So, we're still in that process, but again, we really appreciate HHSC for moving forward on that. We know, there's a lot going on at HHSC, so it's really important for women to continue to, get their coverage past 2 months postpartum once they've had a kiddo. So I will, once we have that blog, I'm happy to include it to members separately, because that's not up on the website yet. The other 2 things I will put in the chat soon.
Thank you, Stephanie. Kirsten, your hand was up.
Yeah, I wanted to just let this group know. I think I've mentioned before that the Texas PBS stations have a grant from our federal agency, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, to do Ready to Learn work, which is primarily content for our very on-air on television, as well as through games and apps. And the goal of this grant that we just received is to maximize the impact of these resources and to align our activities, workshops, and work that we do directly with families, and try to develop some coordinated statewide early childhood work. And so we have partnered with we wish to partner with all of you, but we've partnered formally with the Texas Workforce Commission to look at ways that we can bring these resources forward, to also study ways of scaling this work, and to pilot these resources in 2 communities, Corpus Christi and Midland, Odessa. Excited to have our new member, and would be happy to share with her more about that. So just wanted to kind of give everybody just the initial information about that, and happy to share the website and any other information, or answer any questions you all have.
Right. Thank you, Kirsten. Does Do any other members have updates that they want to share? Okay. Well, Megan, I think that takes us to our last agenda item, which is upcoming early childhood events. Do you have a slide on this? You do, don't you? Yes. Okay. So November 2nd through 4th is the Texas Association for the Education of Young Children's annual conference. It's in Round Rock. And then, does Megan want to talk about Partners in Prevention?
I can.
Is that Megan? Oh, that's Sarah. Does Sarah want to talk about Partners in Prevention?
So only to say, I hope to see many of you at our annual Partners in Prevention Conference in Austin, November 14th through 16th. Thank you, Megan, for dropping the information in our chat. We have passed the 1,000 registrants mark. So it's going to be quite a conference of prevention and early intervention stakeholders, professionals, advocates, champions. I think we have a really solid set of breakouts and speakers and panelists and opportunities to learn from each other. I think I have heard that many of our breakout sessions have already exceeded capacity. So if you are interested and have not already registered, I strongly encourage you to do that as soon as possible. The window is likely closing there. This is not a free, but I do believe it's a fairly reasonable fee for folks that want to attend. We are excited, and there will be opportunity. There are virtual opportunities to participate, and there will be opportunities for us to learn from our Partners in Prevention speakers throughout the year in webinars following the Partners in Prevention Conference, and we'll be releasing more information about that at and following the conference.
And where is the conference this year?
It's in Austin. I think it's at the Renaissance Hotel in Austin.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you, Sarah. And Megan already shared hers in her update. Are there any other events that folks want to let us know about? Okay, well then with that, I think those are all of the agenda items that we have for today's meeting. You'll see our next meeting is January 19th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're working on the remainder of the quarterly schedule. We'll be sharing that with all of the members, but if you can plan for our next meeting on January the 19th. With that, I want to thank all of the members for joining us again, and members of the public who joined. And just confirm that there are no other questions or comments. And if not, it is 11:59, and we're going to call this Texas Early Learning Council meeting. We're going to close it, and we're adjourning. So thank you all for joining us.